All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the Everglades National Park.
Okay.
And you've given me a really interesting collection of sources here.
Yeah.
We've got official park websites and visitor guides.
Uh-huh.
We even have UNESCO reports.
Nice.
So we're going to try to kind of, tease apart what exactly makes this place so unique.
All right.
And I think, it's not just all about the alligators, although we'll definitely be talking about alligators.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, what first things that jumps out at me from these sources is that the Everglades is like a Triple Crown winner.
Yeah.
In terms of ecological recognition.
It is.
It's a World Heritage Site.
Yes.
It's a biosphere reserve.
Yes.
And it's a wetland of international importance.
Yeah, only a handful of places on Earth can claim all three of those designations.
So we're dealing with something pretty special here.
We are.
But just to get us started, what exactly are we dealing with here?
Okay, so imagine like this vast, flat river of grass, just flowing slowly, imperceptibly towards the sea.
Okay.
That's kind of the Everglades in a nutshell.
Right, I'm picturing it.
Yeah, it's the largest subtropical wilderness in the entire United States.
So it's not just grass, right?
Oh, no.
I mean,
it's far more than that.
There's got to be more.
Yeah, you've got these incredible mangrove forests, the largest in the Western Hemisphere.
Wow.
You've got hardwood hammocks,
Okay.
which are basically these like islands of trees growing on these elevated bits of land, teeming with life. And then you've got pine rocklands, which are these areas that actually depend on fire to thrive.
Wait, fire?
Yeah.
Fire is crucial.
How does that work?
So these periodic fires that come through, they clear out the underbrush, they allow sunlight to reach the forest floor.
Oh, okay.
And that creates this perfect condition for certain plants and animals.
Oh, interesting.
So fire is really a vital part of this ecosystem.
Wow. Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Everglades meet the ocean at some point.
Yes.
So there's like a whole marine ecosystem going on there, too.
You got it. Florida Bay.
Okay.
This incredible mixing zone where the fresh water from the Everglades meets the salt water from the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
And that creates a unique environment that supports a whole other set of species.
So it's like this mosaic of, different habitats all kind of interconnected.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
It's no wonder that it's home to so many rare and endangered species.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing here we got manatees, American crocodiles, the elusive Florida panther.
Absolutely. It's a sanctuary.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, the wood stork. You familiar with that bird?
I don't think so.
It's this large wading bird.
Okay.
Very distinctive. It's got like a bold head.
Okay.
And it relies almost entirely on the Everglades for its nesting grounds.
Wow.
And so their populations are actually a really good indicator of the overall health of the ecosystem.
Okay, so we have this amazing ecosystem.
Yeah.
But how did it all come to be?
What forces created this, this landscape?
All right, so picture this. There's this vast limestone shelf underlying much of South Florida, acting like a giant sponge. And this geological formation is actually key to the Everglades' very existence.
So the limestone is soaking up rainwater, and then it's slowly releasing it.
Exactly.
Creating that slow-moving sheet of water that kind of defines the Everglades.
That's exactly it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
But there's a catch, right?
Oh.
And human activity has had to have affected this in some way.
Yes. Unfortunately, you're right. I mean, for decades, people have been draining and diverting water for agriculture and urban development.
Right.
And that has really disrupted this natural flow and led to all sorts of consequences for the ecosystem.
So what are we doing to fix it? Because I'm seeing a lot in these sources about restoration efforts.
Yeah.
It sounds like a monumental task.
It is. It's actually one of the largest and most complex ecosystem restoration projects ever undertaken. And there's this thing called the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, or CARP. And it's a multi-billion-dollar effort to try and restore that natural water flow.
So what does that involve?
Wow.
Are we talking about literally like replumbing the Everglades?
In a way, yes. I mean, it involves removing canals and levees, building reservoirs to store water, and creating these new water flow pathways to try to mimic that natural system.
Wow.
So it's a massive undertaking. It involves multiple government agencies, scientists, engineers, local communities.
So a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different stakeholders.
Oh, absolutely.
I imagine that creates some challenges.
For sure, trying to balance the needs of the ecosystem with the needs of the people who live and work in South Florida.
Right.
It's an ongoing challenge.
Right.
It requires a lot of collaboration, compromise, scientific research to try to find solutions that work for everybody.
So it sounds like a very complex puzzle.
It is.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the wildlife.
Okay.
Because, the Everglades are home to some pretty incredible creatures.
Yes.
What makes them so special, and how are they adapting to all these changes that we've been talking about?
Well, the wildlife here has really evolved to thrive in these very, very specific conditions.
Okay.
Take the American alligator, for instance. It's what we call a keystone species.
Okay, and what does that mean?
That means it plays a crucial role in the entire ecosystem.
Oh, I see.
So they create these things called gator holes.
Gator holes.
Yeah, which are basically depressions in the ground.
Okay.
And they hold water during the dry season.
Okay.
And these gator holes, they become refuges for all sorts of creatures. Fish, turtles, birds.
Oh, wow.
It's like a little oasis in the Everglades.
So the alligators are like ecosystem engineers.
Pretty much.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What about the other species?
Oh.
How are they coping?
Some are more adaptable than others.
Okay.
I mean, take the American crocodile, for instance. That's actually a bit of a success story. They were once endangered, and their populations have actually rebounded thanks to conservation efforts.
That's good.
But others, like the Florida panther, they face a much tougher road.
Yeah.
Struggling with habitat loss and fragmentation,
Right.
because of all the development.
Well.
And they're also vulnerable to car strikes.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, so there's a lot of work to do to make sure these animals have a future.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also seeing here that our sources talk about the impact of invasive species.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's a whole other issue.
Huge challenge
Yeah.
for the Everglades.
Uh,
Invasive species can outcompete native plants and animals. They can disrupt food webs.
right.
They can even alter the physical environment.
I was reading about the Burmese python.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like something out of a horror movie.
They're massive.
How do they even end up in the Everglades?
Well, it's believed that people just released unwanted pet pythons into the wild.
Oh.
And unfortunately, they thrive. Yeah, I mean, they have few natural predators.
Right.
And they're just decimating native mammal populations.
That's terrifying.
It is. So
Are there any efforts to, control them?
there are. So park officials and researchers are working on various methods, trapping and removing pythons.
Okay.
They're using scent detection dogs
Oh, wow.
to track them down.
That's cool.
And they're even exploring innovative technologies like python detecting drones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a constant battle.
So amidst all these challenges,
Yeah,
what does the future hold for the Everglades?
right.
Is there hope?
There is absolutely hope.
Okay.
The Everglades is a resilient place.
Oh.
It's been through a lot, but with continued restoration efforts,
Yeah.
scientific research, public support,
Uh-huh.
it has the potential to recover and to thrive again.
It's good to hear that there's hope,
Yeah,
but what can the average person do to help?
that's a great question.
Because we've been talking about these big picture solutions,
Right.
but are there smaller steps that individuals can take to make a difference?
Absolutely. I mean, just being mindful of your water usage is huge.
Okay.
Conserving water at home
Yeah,
reduces the demand for water that might otherwise be diverted from the Everglades.
that makes sense.
Yeah. And also just supporting responsible tourism.
Okay.
When you visit the Everglades,
Yeah.
choose eco-friendly tour operators.
Okay.
Stay on designated trails. Be respectful of the wildlife and their habitat.
So speaking of visiting the Everglades,
Yes.
our listener might be inspired to experience this firsthand.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone planning a trip?
I think planning is key.
Right.
The Everglades is vast and diverse.
Yeah.
So think about what you want to see and what you want to do.
Right.
Are you interested in wildlife viewing, hiking,
Yeah.
kayaking,
Right.
learning about the history and culture of the area?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's the wildlife.
Oh, for sure.
That's the main draw. So what are some must-see spots for spotting, those iconic Everglades creatures?
Okay, so the Anhinga Trail
Oh,
in Everglades National Park,
uh-huh.
it's legendary
Okay.
for its alligator sightings.
Okay.
It's a short boardwalk loop,
Right.
and you're practically guaranteed to see alligators, turtles, birds, all sorts of activity.
That's definitely going on my list.
Yeah.
What about other parts of the Everglades.
Yeah.
Are there like different entry points to consider?
Absolutely. I mean, Everglades National Park is the most well-known entry point.
Okay.
But you can also access the Everglades through Big Cypress National Preserve.
Okay.
Which offers a more remote and wild experience.
Okay.
And then you have the 10,000 Islands National Wildlife Refuge, which is a kayaker's paradise.
So many options. And
yeah.
It sounds like you could spend weeks exploring
Easily.
all the different facets of the Everglades.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
what about like the practicalities?
Okay.
What should people like pack or know before they go?
Well, weather is a big one.
Okay.
The Everglades has 2 distinct seasons, wet and dry.
Okay.
The dry season from November to April is generally considered the best time to visit.
Okay.
Cooler temperatures, fewer mosquitoes.
Okay.
But be prepared for heat and humidity even during the dry season.
Okay.
Yeah. And speaking of mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, those Everglades mosquitoes.
That'd be legendary.
They can be intense.
Yeah.
Especially during the wet season.
Okay.
Heck, plenty of insect repellent.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Anything else people should keep in mind?
Yeah, I think safety is always a priority.
Of course.
You know, the Everglades is a wild and natural environment.
Yeah.
So be aware of your surroundings, stay on marked trails.
Right.
Keep a safe distance from wildlife. Remember, you're a visitor in their home.
Speaking of respecting wildlife.
Yes.
Our sources mentioned that feeding alligators is a big no-no.
It's a huge no-no.
So why is that?
Because feeding alligators can habituate them to humans. And that makes them more likely to approach people looking for food.
Right.
Which can lead to some dangerous encounters.
Okay.
So it's best to admire these creatures from a safe distance.
Yeah.
Let them exhibit their natural behaviors.
So we've talked about, the ecological importance of the Everglades.
Yes.
The challenges it's facing, the efforts to restore it. But our sources also highlight the human connection to this place.
Right.
I mean, it's not just a wilderness, it's a place with a rich history and culture.
Absolutely. People have been living in and around the Everglades for thousands of years.
Wow.
Adapting to its unique rhythms and resources.
So what can we learn from these indigenous communities that have called the Everglades home for so long?
I think they hold a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of everything in the Everglades.
Yeah.
And their traditional ecological knowledge can inform modern conservation efforts.
Right.
And remind us of the importance of living in harmony with nature.
That's a powerful message. So as we kind of start to wrap up this deep dive here,
yeah.
I'm wondering, what are your final thoughts on the Everglades?
Okay.
What message do you hope our listener takes away from this conversation?
I think the Everglades is a place of remarkable beauty, resilience, and complexity. And it's a reminder that our actions have consequences.
Yeah.
But it also offers hope that we can learn from our mistakes.
Right.
And work together to restore and protect this natural treasure for generations to come.
It's inspiring to see how deeply intertwined,
yeah.
The human and natural elements of the Everglades are.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that conservation isn't just about, protecting wilderness.
Yeah.
It's also about understanding and respecting the cultural heritage that's tied to these places.
Absolutely. And speaking of the human element,
yeah.
We can't forget the role of individuals in Everglades conservation.
Right.
Even if you don't live in Florida, there are things you can do to make a difference.
So what can our listeners do to contribute to the well-being of the Everglades?
All right.
Even from afar?
Well, I think supporting organizations that are dedicated to Everglades restoration is a great place to start.
Okay.
There are so many amazing groups doing incredible work.
Like
the Everglades Foundation.
Okay.
The National Parks Conservation Association, Friends of the Everglades.
Oh, yeah.
Which was actually founded by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas herself.
Oh, right. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas.
Yeah.
Author of the Everglades River of Grass.
Yes.
That book has come up quite a bit in our sources.
Yeah.
It seems like a central reading for anyone who wants to really understand this place.
It is. Her writing is so evocative and powerful.
Yeah.
She really captures the spirit of the Everglades and makes a compelling case for its protection.
Yeah.
So reading her book will give you a deep appreciation for the intricate beauty and ecological significance
right.
of this unique ecosystem.
And for our listener who might not be a bookworm, are there other ways to connect with the Everglades from a distance?
Absolutely. A lot of organizations offer virtual tours, webinars,
Yep.
educational resources online. You can even adopt an Everglades animal through a symbolic adoption program,
Oh, wow.
which helps to support research and conservation efforts.
That's fantastic. So much to explore,
Yeah,
even from afar.
there is.
So we've covered a lot of ground today,
Yeah, we have.
from the unique ecology and wildlife to the challenges of restoration,
Yeah,
the importance of human connection.
right.
Is there anything else you'd like to highlight for our listener
Okay.
before we wrap up?
I think the Everglades is a testament to the interconnectedness of everything in nature.
Yeah.
You know, understanding this delicate balance is essential for protecting not just the Everglades, but all ecosystems around the world.
Right.
And it reminds us that we are all part of something much bigger than ourselves.
That's beautifully put.
Thank you.
So to leave our listener with a final thought,
Right.
what's one question you'd encourage them to ponder
Okay.
as they continue to learn about and appreciate the Everglades?
All right. So if you could travel back in time and experience the Everglades before human intervention,
Yep.
what do you think it would be like?
That's a great question.
Imagining that pristine landscape can really help us appreciate the value of restoration
Uh-huh.
and inspire us to work towards a future
Right.
where that river of grass flows freely once again.
A beautiful thought.
Thank you.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
That sounds good. They're incredible, right?
Yeah. I mean, so they're really well adapted to this environment.
They are.
But,
Yeah,
you know, human activity has changed things quite a bit.
it has.
How have these animals, how have they adapted?
Well, some species are definitely more adaptable than others.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, the American crocodile, that's a success story.
Right.
Once endangered, their populations have rebounded thanks to conservation efforts.
Oh, that's good to hear.
It is. But others, like the Florida panther, face a much tougher road. You
Yeah.
know, they're struggling with habitat loss,
Right.
fragmentation because of all the development, and they're also incredibly vulnerable to car strikes.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
And then we also have
Yeah.
the issue of invasive species
Right.
that our sources talk about.
Yeah, a huge challenge for the Everglades.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like it's its own separate problem
It is.
on top of everything else that's going on.
It is. Yeah.
I was reading about the Burmese python.
Oh, those things are scary.
They really are. I mean,
Yeah.
how did they even get there?
Well, it's believed that people just released unwanted pet pythons into the wild.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, they thrived.
And now they're a huge problem.
Now they're a huge problem.
What are we doing about it?
Well, park officials and researchers are working on a variety of methods.
Okay.
Like they're trapping and removing pythons.
Right.
They're using scent detection dogs to track them down.
Print detection dogs.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they're even exploring innovative technologies like python detecting drones.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
So we've got a lot of challenges
we do.
facing the Everglades. you know,
Yeah.
between the water management issues
Yeah.
and the invasive species.
Yeah.
What does the future hold for this place?
Well, I think there's absolutely hope. The
Yeah.
Everglades is a very resilient place.
Okay.
It's been through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, with continued restoration efforts,
Yeah.
scientific research,
Right.
public support,
Okay.
it has the potential to recover and to thrive again.
It's good to hear that there's hope,
Yeah.
but what can the average person do?
Whoa.
Like, what can our listener do
That's a great question.
to help? You know, we've been talking about these big picture,
Yeah.
multi-billion-dollar solutions.
Solutions, right.
But what about just like on an individual level? Are there things that people can do?
Absolutely. I mean, even just being mindful of your water usage is a huge step.
Okay.
You know, conserving water at home reduces the demand for water that might otherwise be diverted from the Everglades.
That makes sense.
So that's a big one.
What else?
And supporting responsible tourism.
Okay.
You know, when you visit the Everglades, choose eco-friendly tour operators.
Right.
Stay on designated trails. Be respectful of the wildlife and their habitat.
You know you're a visitor in their home.
Exactly.
So speaking of visiting the Everglades,
Yeah.
Our listener might be inspired to experience this firsthand.
I hope so.
I know, me too. And so
Yeah.
what advice would you give to someone who's planning a trip?
I think planning is key.
Okay.
The Everglades is vast and diverse.
Yeah.
So you really need to think about what you want to see and do. Are you interested in wildlife viewing,
Right.
hiking, kayaking, learning about the history and culture of the area?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, the wildlife is the main draw.
Absolutely.
So what are some good spots for, actually seeing these iconic Everglades creatures?
All right, so the Anhinga Trail in Everglades National Park, it's legendary for its alligator sightings.
Really?
Yes. It's a short boardwalk loop,
Okay.
and you are practically guaranteed to see alligators, turtles, birds, all sorts of activity.
That's going on my list.
It should. What about
Yeah.
other parts of the Everglades?
Yeah.
Are there different entry points people should be aware of?
Absolutely. I mean, Everglades National Park is the most well-known entry point.
Right.
But you can also access the Everglades through Big Cypress National Preserve,
Okay.
which offers a more remote and wild experience.
Oh, wow.
And then there's the 10,000 Islands National Wildlife Refuge,
Okay.
which is a kayaker's paradise.
Wow, so many options.
Yeah. It sounds like you could spend weeks exploring
Easily.
all the different facets of
Right.
the Everglades.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
practicalities?
Okay.
What should people know
Right.
before they go?
Weather is a big one.
Okay.
The Everglades has two distinct seasons, wet and dry.
Okay.
The dry season from November to April is generally considered the best time to visit.
Okay.
Cooler temperatures, fewer mosquitoes.
Fewer mosquitoes. That's always good.
It is, but you want to be prepared for the heat and humidity even during the dry season.
Yeah, those Everglades mosquitoes are legendary, right?
They can be intense,
I can imagine.
especially during the wet season.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
pack plenty of insect repellent.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Anything else people should keep in mind?
I think safety is always a priority.
Of course.
It's a wild and natural environment, so be aware of your surroundings, stay on marked trails, keep a safe distance from wildlife.
Right.
Remember, you are a visitor in their home.
Yeah, our sources also mentioned
Yeah.
that feeding alligators is a big no-no.
Huge no-no.
Why is that so important?
Well, because feeding alligators can habituate them to humans,
Okay.
which makes them more likely to approach people looking for food.
Right.
And that can lead to dangerous encounters.
Yeah.
So it's best to admire these incredible creatures from a safe distance.
Right.
Let them exhibit their natural behaviors.
So we've talked about, the ecological importance of the Everglades.
Yes.
The challenges it's facing, the efforts to restore it.
Right.
But our sources also highlight the human connection to this place.
Yeah.
It's not just a wilderness.
Yeah, it's not.
It's also a place with a rich history and culture.
Absolutely. And people have been living in and around the Everglades for thousands of years,
Wow.
adapting to its unique rhythms and resources.
What can we learn from those communities? I mean, the indigenous communities that have called this place home for so long.
I think they hold a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of everything in the Everglades.
Yeah.
And their traditional ecological knowledge can inform modern conservation efforts
Yeah.
and remind us of the importance of living in harmony with nature.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I'm wondering, what are your final thoughts on the Everglades?
Okay.
What message do you hope our listener takes away from this conversation?
I think the Everglades is a place of remarkable beauty, resilience, and complexity. It's a reminder that our actions have consequences,
Yeah.
but it also offers hope that we can learn from our mistakes and work together to restore and protect this natural treasure for generations to come.
Yeah, it really is. And speaking of the human element, we can't forget the role of individuals in Everglades conservation.
Right.
Even if you don't live in Florida, are there things that our listeners can do to make a difference?
Absolutely. I think supporting organizations dedicated to Everglades restoration is a great place to start.
Okay.
There are so many amazing groups doing incredible work, like the Everglades Foundation.
The National Parks Conservation Association. Friends of the Everglades, which was actually founded by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas herself.
Oh, wow. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, author of The Everglades, River of Grass.
Yeah.
That book has come up quite a bit in our sources.
It has.
It seems like essential reading.
It is.
For anyone who really wants to understand this place.
It is. Her writing is so evocative and powerful.
Yeah.
She captures the spirit of the Everglades and makes a really compelling case for its protection.
Yeah.
So reading her book will give you a deep appreciation for the intricate beauty and ecological significance of this unique ecosystem.
And for our listener who might not be a bookworm,
Okay.
Are there other ways to kind of connect with the Everglades from a distance?
Oh, definitely. A lot of organizations offer virtual tours, webinars,
Okay.
educational resources online. You can even adopt an Everglades animal
Really?
through a symbolic adoption program,
That's so cool.
which helps to support research and conservation efforts. Well, that's fantastic. So much to explore,
There is.
even from afar.
Yeah,
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today,
we have.
from the, unique ecology and wildlife
Yeah.
to the challenges of restoration,
Uh-huh.
the importance of human connection.
Right.
Is there anything else you'd like to highlight for our listener before we wrap up?
I think the Everglades is a testament to the interconnectedness of everything in nature.
Yeah.
Understanding this delicate balance is essential for protecting not just the Everglades, but all ecosystems around the world.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that we are all part of something much bigger than ourselves.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
So, to leave our listener with a final thought,
Okay.
what's one question you'd encourage them to ponder
Right.
as they continue to listen, learn about and appreciate the Everglades?
If you could travel back in time and experience the Everglades before human intervention, what do you think it would be like? Yeah, imagining that pristine landscape can really help us appreciate the value of restoration and inspire us to work towards a future where that river of grass flows freely once again.
That's a beautiful thought.
Thank you.
Well, this has been a truly fascinating deep dive.
It has been.
I've learned so much.
Me too.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of the Everglades.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Sounds good.